what I have here is a list of all of the different commands that I've run through in PowerShell. And I've gone through the same process as we've shown throughout these videos. I've looked up commands. I've looked up how to use them. I've gone through the process of vetting all of these commands. So there's a lot of background work that went to these to make these all work. So at the top for our IP address, we're using a resolve-DNS name, which will go and resolve what the DNS name is for a specific host name that you put in. And then from that, we're gonna select the name and the IP address from that. So let's go ahead and open up our window. And if I run through this, we got to select the whole thing. So if we run through this, you'll see it brings back that piece of information for us. So under DNS server, what I'm doing is I'm doing a get-DNS server address. So that's pulling what the DNS server address is set on the client system. So for this, I'm using a -sim session because that's the only way we can connect is using sim. So notice I'm using parentheses in here to run this command first to establish that new sim session to client 02. Then I've got some parameters here that I'm asking for as well. So notice I'm using the backtick as well so I can break that out. So if I select the entire command here, we'll run this, we'll see it brings back 192.168.0.106, and that's because I used the member enumeration by putting decimal server addresses at the end of that. You'll notice I'm using that for many of the things as I'm going through. The reason is because that gives me a single value without any headings. It's a great way, again, for when you're gathering information. So the next thing is getting the operating system, and we're going to be using get-sim instance with a lot of different SimWMI classes as we go through. So note we're going to the operating system, and notice I'm pulling the caption from that. So if we run that, we see we get Microsoft Windows 8.1 Enterprise. So the next one is system memory, and I'm going to go to a different tab to break this out for you to see how this works, because this is kind of going into some steps, because what I need to do is I want to get to the final value of what the amount of memory is in gigabytes. So in order to do that, let's clear our console here, is we start with the basic command. So I'll run the get-sim instance for the physical memory. We see we get a lot of pieces of information here. So we're interested in the capacity number here. So if I run that with the .capacity, we see we get the amount in bytes. And so the thing with this is, since I'm running this on a virtual machine, I only have one stick of memory in here. When you have multiple sticks of memory, you're going to have multiple instances of this. So what I need to do is I need to use a commandlet called measure-object, or measure for short. What that will do with the -sum parameter, it'll actually sum up all of this information. So if I have multiple pieces coming through, it'll sum all of that up. So we'll go ahead and run through that. So we see that it's gone through and it's done a sum. So then on the next line, I simply want to pull that sum value that we have down here. And so we'll go through that, and that pulls just that sum value. And then what I can do from here is I can divide that by 1 gigabyte. And what that will do is that'll bring back a gigabyte answer for me. So that's what I want to get it into. Notice at the beginning here, we've got a lot of parentheses. So this can get a little bit complex, and you want to make sure that you get all your parentheses in. So if I remove one, notice at the end here, I've got a little squiggly, and if I cursor over it, it's going to basically tell me that there's something wrong with the expression or statement. And most of the time, this means that I'm missing an end brace or bracket or a parentheses in this case. So we'll put that back in there, and you'll see that that'll go away. So that's how you go through and do some measuring. So let's go back to our commands, decrease this window a little bit. And then the next one we have is where we're getting the last boot up time, again using sim instance. So we'll get our last boot up time. And the next one, I'm doing an invoke command, the computer name client02, and the command I'm doing is I'm doing a get-ps drive, and then I'm basically doing a where-object to just get the C drive. And what I'm looking for is the free space from that command that's being brought over. So if we'll run that, we see we get the free space there. So then the user info, this one is going to get -80 user for the user I specified, pull all the properties, and then from that, get the last logon date. So we see the last logon date was right there. And then the next one is going to pull for us the group membership for the 80 user account. And it brings it back as the distinguished names or the DNs. So this would tell us where within the Active Directory structure those sit. The next one, we're pulling the user account information, so the user accounts on the system. So if we run that, that'll tell me what user accounts are located on that specific system. And then the last one, this is going to pull for me all of the printers that are on that system. So as you can see, this one only doesn't have any printers. So maybe this user called in and said, hey, I can't print anything. Right away I can tell, oh, they don't have any printers installed. So we could go through the process for installing that for them. So that's our base command. So let's get to our script